Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Debbie and at the moment I have been binge watching The Handmaid's Tale and I made it through season 4. So I'm pretty much all caught up for now. But yeah, season 4. As with other videos that I've done regarding this, there will be spoilers just because it's hard to not talk about certain stuff throughout the season, especially as the majority of this season focuses on June getting out of Gilead. If you don't want to hear about this, turn off, go watch it, then come back. So the first couple of episodes, you start off pretty much picking up where season 3 left off. Because at the end of season 3, June manages to get all of the children onto the plane and she distracts the guards so that the Marthas can get the children onto the plane and get them into Canada. So in the last episode I cried because you saw the plane make it to Canada, you saw some kids being reunited with their families in Canada, and it was just a very, very emotional, tearful moment. At the end of season 3 you see June and the other handmaids attacking the guards who were guarding the airport to distract them, and June ends up being very, very badly injured. So season 4 starts off with the handmaids taking June to a farmhouse to kind of help her to recover, and this farmhouse is run by a very, very young commander's wife. You find out that Commander Keyes is quite a horrible guy because he has his associates raped Esther, basically, and in the first episode you see the handmaids kill one of Esther's rapists. So starts off very, very dark straight away, as most episodes of Handmaid's Tale. It's very dark anyway. You've got a new arc for Aunt Lydia. I feel like they're starting to kind of set the seeds of what later becomes the Testaments, if they are planning on going that route with later seasons, because at the moment with what they've done and with the current storyline, I feel like they only need 1 or 2 more seasons to kind of wrap up this part of it before then kind of maybe jumping ahead to what happens in the Testaments, unless they want to find some way to kind of fill the gap between this storyline and what happens in the Testaments, because the Testaments is based 16 years almost after the events of the book Handmaid's Tale, and obviously at this point we are a few years ahead of that now, because, you know, June's had a baby, we've seen other people's pregnancies happen, so yeah. Seeing the way that Aunt Lydia seems to be slowly changing, I think it would be really interesting if in the next season they kind of look at planting those seeds a little bit more of how Aunt Lydia will then go on to kind of betray Gilead. I guess spoiler for the Testaments, really. Because in the Testaments, it's hard to tell if Aunt Lydia has always been on both sides, or whether something happened later which then made her betray Gilead. So it would be so interesting to see how they incorporate the Testaments book into the television series. Excuse me. You see Aunt Lydia portrayed as a bit more frail this season, and then you also see her kind of building up her confidence again. Aunt Lydia's never been portrayed as kind of a weakling. She's always kind of been one of the stronger aunts. A lot of people think of her as like the aunt because she seems to be kind of the one that kind of takes charge the most, and there are certain scenes in the season where you see her as kind of like almost the brains behind the aunts a little bit. Like there's certain scenes with the aunts where you see them in a room with like a turntable on it where they're looking at like the new recruits, the new handmaids, and it always seems to come back to Aunt Lydia's thoughts and point of view. So yeah, I just find it really interesting where they're going to go with Aunt Lydia after this. Throughout the first 3 or 4 episodes, because I think this one 10? Yeah, it's 10 episodes, this one. Throughout the first 3 or 4 episodes, you see a couple of attempts on June and the handmaids' part to escape Gilead. Because in the first couple of episodes, they are at the farmhouse, Commander Keyes' farmhouse, where they essentially turn themselves into Marthas, so as to not kind of bring attention to themselves. acting as kind of like servants to the household. They're getting things done and they are preparing to move on to Canada. It's kind of middle to end of episode 2 that Nick comes looking for the handmaids, finds June and takes her back to mainland Gilead, where she then gets tortured in episode 3 to reveal the location of the other handmaids, which she refuses to do. No matter what, she's trying to protect them, though unfortunately after being subject to a lot of torture in episode 3, it's a very, very hard watch. She's essentially waterboarded, and there's a point when they try to kind of rip off her fingernails. When they try to rip off her fingernails, that's the point when she lies about the location of the handmaids, and they think, oh, good girl, you know, you've told us. And then they realise that she's lied about where they are, and they come back to torture her even more. Eventually, the torture does get to her, and she does eventually reveal the location of the rest of the handmaids. But just as they come back, when they're kind of in a truck with Aunt Lydia, there comes a train, which obviously means that the van can't go anywhere, and they use the opportunity to disable Aunt Lydia and escape. This is where the hard bit comes in, because then there's a really horrible accident as they're trying to run away because of the train. As I say, I'm not going to say who's affected by it, but people die when they run in front of the train. They're not trying to run in front of the train, they are trying to escape the people who are chasing them. Unfortunately, the train is coming at that exact moment, and so, yeah. I'm not going to say who goes, but it was an incredibly shocking moment, because I just never expected them to do that. It was a very big surprise, it caught me off guard, and I was just there going, bloody hell, did they really just do that? So at the moment when you see the train going past, and you see June and other handmaids on the other side of the train thinking, shit, they've gone. And then they just stand there for absolutely ages while this train is going by, and I'm just thinking, look, they've gone, run, run. I was literally screaming at my television, run, run. I watched all this on Amazon Prime, by the way. Seasons 1 to 3 are all available to watch for free if you've got Prime, and then you have to pay to get season 4, which is what I did. But yeah, it was just the episode with the train, when they escape again, was such a heartbreaking moment when I was just like, I just did not expect them to do that at all. You also get flashbacks to Janine before Gilead, and seeing her with her pregnancy and the fact that she wanted an abortion, and seeing how she handled that. It was so nice to see Janine's backstory. There's so many more backstories that I think will be really interesting to see. I definitely want to see Nick's backstory, because we haven't really got that yet. I think Commander Lawrence's background and backstory would be really interesting, because we know bits of it, because we know how instrumental he was in the creation of Gilead. So I really think it'd be interesting to look at his backstory, to find out and explain the way he is in Gilead, because he's a bit of a flip-flopper. Commander Lawrence is a bit of a flip-flopper. Sometimes he's on Gilead's side, sometimes he's on the other side, and it's hard to tell which side he's going to be on half the time. But you can tell he has a great affectionate side. He does have a heart in there. We saw it in season 3 when he was reading the story to the kids before they got on the plane. You see that he's actually seems to have a genuine friendship with June. And you do see more of his sympathetic side in this season. And you see kind of a friendship happening between Commander Lawrence and Nick, which was interesting. And you also see Nick finding his voice a little bit, because because in the first couple of seasons before we kind of knew his part in Gilead and how instrumental he was, because at first you didn't know that he was an eye, which obviously we learned in season 2 or season 3. Was it season 2? I want to say it was season 2 that we found out he was an eye. But he obviously has got feelings for June, because throughout everything that he has done, it always comes back to June. So you know he has affection and love for June, and it's obvious that he cares about what happens to their child together. But yeah, it was just, I feel like this season has kind of brought it back a bit. I think all the seasons have just been so different, and this is the most different that they've forgotten from the seasons because we're having so much story outside of Gilead. You're seeing so much of it outside of Gilead in Canada. You've got the storyline with the Waterfords being arrested and being held in Canada. And then, oh my god, this is the biggest twist that I never saw coming. In this season, spoiler, 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 we find out that Serena is pregnant. How did that happen? As soon as they said that she was pregnant, I was just like, wait, who does she sleep with? And then you find out that the father is Fred. But all this time, it has been implied that Fred is sterile and that Serena couldn't get pregnant because of the shooting before Gilead. So to find out she was pregnant was a complete shock to me. And again, I feel like it twists everything again, because you're just like, what? Yeah, I got so confused that I literally, as soon as they did that clip where you find out that Serena is pregnant, I was just like, who did she sleep with? So just thinking, even if they were trying to imply that the shooting didn't affect her ability to have children, throughout all of it, I think even in the book it tries to imply, it never explicitly states it, which is why I should never assume, but it is strongly implied that Fred is sterile. I think even Serena believes that her husband is sterile, which is why she organised for June and Nick to have sex. And it's her crime there gets her into real trouble in Canada, actually, because they say that with organising Nick to have sex with June to have this baby and being in the room for it, that constitutes as rape, obviously. But in the season, it's after, because there was a point when they say, because of how Serena is helping them, that she's going to get immunity. As soon as they find out from Fred about the point, because it also tells us that Fred knew about the arrangement that was made there. The fact that we find out that Fred knew about it is a bit... just whacked my deodorant off the table. But the fact that you find out that Fred knew about it sends you off on a whole different thing. Seeing Serena and Fred being kind of held in preparation for a trial is kind of satisfying, really, because they're not in Gilead, they've been arrested for war crimes, and then you see Serena get arrested again and told, no, you haven't got your immunity anymore because we found out about you organising for June to get raped. And then you find out that Fred might be getting immunity because he is giving information to Canadian officials about how Gilead is run, and he's giving them quite trustworthy information about like who is at the top, like the ranks of everybody involved in Gilead. And when June goes into court to give her account of the events, they don't leave anything out. You see everything. You hear everything from June's point of view in court saying about exactly what Fred and Serena did to her. And it's just a close-up on her face as she's talking about it. And there was point of thinking, is it necessary to really go through that? But then at the same time, you realise her husband's in the room listening to all of this. And throughout the season, you see a very estranged relationship between June and her husband because she won't talk about anything. Because they have sex a couple of times, and whenever June doesn't want to talk, she tries to instigate something with him. And he's there going, no, June, talk to me. Talk to me, but she doesn't want to talk. So when she finally gets everything off her chest in that courtroom, and her husband looks at her and goes, bloody hell, okay, I understand why you didn't want to talk now. But he still wants her to be able to trust him and to be able to have those conversations. And she finally tells him what happened when she saw their daughter for the last time. The moment when she does turn up in Canada, she is so scared of seeing her husband because she was convinced she was going to arrive in Canada with their daughter. And she looks at him in tears going, I'm sorry, it's just me. That moment was so heartbreaking. It was so heartbreaking seeing June looking at her husband and saying, I'm sorry, our daughter is not with me. I did everything I could to try and get her out. And he's there going, but it's you. I've got you. And now that you're here, we can work together to get her out. This season really does kind of bring it back to the bare bones of it again. And even though I've enjoyed every single season, I feel like this is back up there with season 1, with how the story is and how it makes you feel. There's so much I haven't talked about, but to be fair, I don't need to talk about everything. I will say that when June finally does make it into Canada, because she was with another handmaid in Chicago when they're on the run after the train thing, but she's with another handmaid, and again, I'm not going to say who it is because I feel like that would lead to spoilers about who was involved and survived the train incident. Obviously June survived it, but there were other handmaids involved who didn't make it through that. When June and the other handmaid make it to Chicago, you realise through kind of cuts to Gilead that they were arranging a ceasefire basically, but in like the brief moment before the ceasefire, like in the last like 2 minutes before the ceasefire officially starts, they are going to drop a bomb. They are going to bomb Chicago. And then you see June and the other handmaid in Chicago where it's a ghost town, and then they're going, oh, but there's food here. And then there's June going, hang on a second, something is not right. And then 2 seconds later the bomb hits. And so you've got them scrambling, running for their lives, trying to figure everything out. And then once the bombings have stopped, when the ceasefire is official, Canadians come in by boat and they go in and kind of try to tidy up and save who they can. But the thing is, though, they're not allowed to take anybody out. So when Moira finds June and she's like, come with me. But then there's other people on the boat going, no, we can't take anybody with us. This isn't right. You know, we need to do this properly. Otherwise, we'll never be allowed to come back into Gilead. We'll never be able to come back over to save people because this is like organised for us to be able to come over during the ceasefire and do stuff and then get back out again. So when Moira manages to sneak June onto the boat and everybody goes, what the hell are we going to do? There's going to be an inspection before we get back into Canadian waters. And Moira didn't realise that. And I was just thinking, how are they going to hide her? And then I was just like, are they just going to hide her in plain sight? And that's exactly what they did. They hide her in plain sight. They give her some new ID. They got her in, they completely cover her up. So all you can see is her face. She's got like a hat on. She's completely covered up. And so when the guards come and inspect everything and they're just like, name, and she goes, was it Rachel Jones or whatever it is, or Rachel Smith? It's a very common name that she gives. And then they look at her because obviously she's just been in a bombing, so she's like cut up and everything. And then they're like, what happened? And she doesn't know what to say. So Moira cuts in and says, have you seen Chicago? There was a bomb, you know, she fell, she's hit her head, she's a bit out of it right now. And they take that at face value and they let her go. And it was just like, whew. Because I was just thinking, that's the only way they could get away with it. They have to hide her in plain sight, and that's what they do, and it works. And then they get her into Canada, she falls apart, she's like, I don't have my daughter with me, my husband is not going to be happy. And the way she looks at him and says, it's just me, I haven't got her. And oh, it's heartbreaking. It's completely heartbreaking. But then when you see her in Canada and you see her finding herself a bit, and you realise that she's kind of lost a part of herself in leaving Gilead. There's lots of close-ups on June's face. To be fair, throughout the whole thing, there's lots of close-ups on June's face as she's kind of, as you see the cogs turning, basically, as you see her trying to work out what she's going to do next. The way this season ended was insane. I didn't see it coming, because when you think that Fred is getting his immunity and they're about to put him on a plane and protect him, and then they arrange with Commander Lawrence, to be specific, to trade Waterford for 20, was it 20 or 21 handmaids? They're just like, and they agree to it. So just when Fred thinks he's all hunky-dory and that he's getting away with it, and they go, oh, you're not going where you think you're going, you're not getting your immunity, and Fred's there going, well, where am I going then? It's just like, oh, we've made a deal, you're going home. And you're just like, oh, Gilead's going to have a field day because of everything that Fred has done to betray Gilead in the effort to save himself. And obviously he knows about the pregnancy at this point, and he's there going, you can't do this, you know, I'm about to be a dad. And while I was just in my head, I was just like, ha ha! Now you get it. Now you get it. This is what the handmaids have been doing all along. They've all been separated from their families and they're going, why are you doing this? You can't do this to we were parents and all this sort of stuff. And Fred is all turned on him as he's there going, you can't do this to me. You know, I was supposed to get immunity. I'm about to be a dad. I'm about to have a son, blah, 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 all this. So when he gets back onto Gilead, then you see June turn up. And then you see other handmaids turn up. And you're just like, No, wait, it's not the handmaids. Well, yeah, it is. It's former handmaids from Canada. So you see June and the former handmaids from Canada, and they chase him. They chase him, they injure him. It's strongly implied that he's dead by the end of it. June is convinced that she's going to hang him on the wall. And then at the end of the season, you see Serena waiting for a Zoom session with her husband. And you're just there going, oh God, she's never going to hear from him. Especially when there's a guy sorting the mail out and he opens up a thing to kind of check what's in it, and out comes a ring, a wedding ring, and a finger. Fred's finger in an envelope. Ooh. I'm going to shut up now. This is going to be a long video anyway. But yeah, this was just so good. And also, I found it really cool when I saw Elizabeth Moss, who plays June, actually directed a few episodes in this. And oh my God, her episodes were absolutely fantastic. The episodes that she directed, when I saw at the end that she directed it, it was just like, that was cool. That is so cool. I love it when you watch a television series and you realise that that episode has been directed by somebody who was in the cast. I find that so cool and so clever, and that must be such an interesting thing to do, from, you know, playing a certain character for so long and then getting the chance to direct an episode of the show that you're in. It's just so cool. Anyway, I'm going to shut up about season 4. I am so looking forward to the next season. As I said, I think with this current storyline, it might finish with season 5 or season 6, maybe. I'm not quite sure how far they can go with it. I don't know if they're going to try and incorporate the Testaments into this to make it go longer, or if they're going to do an entire separate season to cover the Testaments. But yeah, it's just, I just love this show. I was so interested by the book and the concept of Gilead. I mean, it was terrifying, but I'm so interested in it. So I will say, if you do like anything that involves kind of the future, or things that kind of dabble kind of like in history and how history repeats itself and dystopian futures, just watch it all. It is so good and so clever. And, you know, as with any series, there's always got like weak episodes or maybe slightly weaker storylines every so often, but ultimately it all adds up. And the fact that with both books you see a time after Gilead, and you know that this isn't going to be forever. I can't wait to see how the downfall is portrayed, which you do see in the Testament, when you find out like who is betraying Gilead, who is like involved in that side of things. And I think if they do decide to portray what happens in the Testaments in the TV series, it's seeing how they do it, if they're going to do like a jump forward, because to be fair they'll have to, because they're going to have to jump about 15 years to portray what happens in the Testament. I'm so interested to see what the main storyline is going forward for season 5. I did find it interesting because season 4 was filmed during the pandemic, so there were little things I was watching thinking, I was looking at it thinking, are they social distancing? Are they doing something slightly differently, or was it just, I don't exactly know when it was filmed. But yeah, there were little things about how it was done where it's just like, oh, would they have filmed it like that before COVID? It's so interesting to watch stuff that has been filmed during the pandemic, basically. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for the next season. But yeah, so cheers, thanks a lot. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. I will be doing more books. I've been reading so many books lately, so there's lots of books out there that I'm getting ready to edit. I'll see you next week with another video. Mwah. Stay safe. Bye, my lovelies. Love you.